Welcome into another great episode of Finding Freedom right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, or if you're listening on the Finding Freedom solo feed, the Finding Freedom podcast. Whichever place you're listening, however you listen to this podcast, happy to have you here. If you found it on YouTube or Odyssey, just happy to have you as a listener. Got a great interview lined up. Going to be talking with someone about mindset. And this individual was sentenced to life in prison. And he got out and he tells his story of how he changed his mindset in prison to think a different way, to act a different way, and to be a different way before he even knew that he would ever set foot out in the free world. It's an incredible story. And I hope it inspires you to hopefully make some big changes in your own life. But before we get to that, I want to let everyone know about a very special podcast that is occurring this Friday for members of our Lions of Liberty Pride, people who are patrons, people who support us through Patreon or support us through locals. We are having an AMA and Ask Me Anything, myself, Mark, and Brian, coming up this Friday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. It's going to stream live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's going to be a good time. It's going to be in our traditional libertarians in living rooms drinking liquor style. It's going to be laid back. It's going to be fun to listen to, but it's not going to make it out into the public world. The only way that you can hear this podcast is by joining our Patreon. And you can go to either patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com, and you'll be able to hear it for as little as $5 a month. But I encourage you to go there and check out all the different levels, because I'm not bashful about saying this. We have the best Patreon, the best supporters program out there. I think we give the most away by far from anyone else out there in the liberty sphere, and probably most just podcasts in general. Most creators, most podcasters with their Patreon supporters groups, they don't give anything away. They'll give you some early content, and that's about it. But we have tons of bonus shows. We have discounts in our store. We get influence to people to create their own shows. We have supporter calls every month. We got a ton of different stuff, and we love engaging and talking with our patrons. So go ahead, check that out, and we appreciate it. Without any further delay, let's get to the show.
We are born free, and we will die free. The time in between, though, that's complicated. In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
My guest today on Finding Freedom is Solomon Montagueo. In July of 1997, Solomon was charged with 2 counts. One count was conspiracy to distribute multiple kilograms of cocaine base. The other count, possession with intent to distribute 2.3 grams of cocaine base. He was found guilty on both counts and sentenced to life plus 30 years in prison. As we talked about in our pre-show chat, by the grace of God, he is free now, and he was released due to the First Step Act. His judge granted a motion that took his mandatory life down to 28 and a half years, and he got out in February of 2021. Solomon, welcome to Finding Freedom.
Man, John, it's a blessing to be here. Blessing. I appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have you here, man. And like always, with like so many previous guests I've had on, I was connected with you through Malik King, and just a great guy doing incredible work, and he's had a huge influence on this show by helping to connect me with so many people. So always a big shout out to Malik. So if you could just paint the picture what life was like for you before ending up in prison. I know I've read a little bit about your backstory and your gang activity and what you were affiliated with back then. If you could kind of share with people who don't understand what that's like or how you end up in that situation, how that comes about.
Yeah, well, I'm from Chicago. Chicago is known for organization, violence, as people say, gang affiliation and so forth. Very, very organized city. Everything is sectioned off. Everything is organized, and that's how I come up in Chicago. I was belong to the organization called the Vice Lords. Chicago has been like that since Al Capone days, since the 1920s. So everybody kind of gravitated towards that. As far as you got to you have to belong to something to be about something. That was the mentality in Chicago and still is today. It just changed. These youngsters now, they got cliques and they are more freestyle and more violent now, as opposed to my day, it was more organized. And as a youngster, I grew up in sports and I was a very good football player, but the environment that my mother stayed in was infested with organized street soldiers, as we call them. And I knew that in order to survive, I had to get out there and get involved in that. That was my mentality. So I got involved with the guys in the streets and I became a vice lord. Within that became, the fighting, the warring, the going. I've been through all levels of jail, juvenile, county, state, and I did 24 years on a mandatory life sentence in federal prison due to that mindset.
How old were you when you first got affiliated with the gang?
Well, I was 8 years old when I first went to jail. But when I first became a hardcore street member, about 13 years old.
Wow.
And this was the lifestyle back in Chicago. If you didn't belong to something, you got crushed, basically. Your car got broken into, houses got broken into. There was no respect. It's just mostly like the Italian organization. If you belong, then you got respect. You got perks. People in your family wasn't messed with because you knew somebody. So that type of style trickled down into the organized street organizations in Chicago. That style, that mentality. So I realized that as a youngster, and I became a part of that, which was to me, now that I'm older, was a bad choice. But back then, I thought it was the best choice for survival for me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
And through that process, come the dangers and fighting and the gunplay and so forth, criminal activity. You getting involved in this, or you experience in jail, the juvenile system. I went through that system. I went through the county jail system. I went through the state system, and all these systems, all it did was corrupt me more. So when I got the state system, I got involved in the drug trade and ended up moving to Rockford, Illinois, and walked right into a conspiracy. And due to my background and reputation, I was given a mandatory life sentence. Mandatory in the federal system, there are two types of life sentences. There's guideline life and there's mandatory life. Guideline life means that the judge can reduce your sentence if he want to. Mandatory life means the law have to change in order for you to get out. So in order for me to get out, the law had to change. And that's what happened with me. And by the grace of God, 15 years before I got out, I got a revelation, gave my life to God and got a revelation to start changing my life. I started keeping the peace in prison. I started program, became a mentor, a chess teacher, a peacemaker. I was a QA, a quality assurance inspector for 17 years in the industries there. I got my body right, my mind right, my soul right, my spirit right. And through all this, I took like 200 some programs in federal prison. I took a page out of Nelson Mandela's book. Beautiful story. If you haven't watched the movie and read the book, it's called Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my hero. Once I read this book and seen this movie, that inspired me to take prison and make it my university And education is the most powerful tool that can be used to change the world. That's Nelson Mandela. So that was a paradigm shift for me. I started taking these programs, bettering my life, bettering myself, educating myself, disciplining myself. And when that law changed, it was right on time. 24 years later, put the motion into the judge. He seen all the good work that I did. And he said, due to my transitional change in prison is the reason why he granted my motion. And that's how I got out.
I think it's worthwhile to point out that that change occurred with you. You had no idea that you'd ever get out. I mean, you can speak to this. Did you think you would ever get out? I mean, you had a mandatory life sentence. What was your mindset? When you were serving that out?
Yes, and I'm gonna tell you my mindset. And actually, on a side note, I like to let everybody know that I have established my own company called HIT, Highly Intelligent Thought. And that means changing one level of thinking to the next. And that's what happened to me. But when I was in sentencing, I spoke in sentencing. And I told the judge that I would fight for my freedom. I felt like even though I admitted to being involved in selling drugs and so forth, but I didn't believe that I deserve a mandatory life sentence. Mandatory means you die in prison. So I didn't believe that for selling drugs that I deserved to die in prison. And the judge said the same thing, but at the time, that was the law. I was under the crack cocaine law, meaning that back in the 90s, they had passed a law where they made crack 100 times more powerful than powder. So if you got caught with a gram or an ounce of crack, they treated it as 100 grams, 100 ounces. Yeah.
That was the.
So that's how it was back then.
That was a 94 crime bill that our now president Joe Biden had a big part in writing.
Yeah, Joe Biden, Clinton. Yeah. So I was a part of that, and because of that, I received a mandatory life sentence due to my past history, my criminal history in the state. So that allowed the judge. He had no choice. His hands was tied behind his back. So I told the judge in sentencing that I was going to fight for my freedom because of the unfairness. But as time went by, man, as years went by, decades went by, I was challenged. I reached my lowest point at one time and actually contemplated suicide.
Wow.
And what happened was I just got a revelation, and I woke up one day. It's a long story about that, but I woke up one day, all the lifers in federal prison, we had like a lifers group, and we all hung out together. And unconsciously, we were miserable. We were positive, moving around, doing our thing. But, it was a sign on us that said, these guys got life and people want no part of us, But we had our own family there, the lifers, and we hung out with each other. We studied together. We hung out together. We watched guys go home for years, years and years and years. So one day I realized this, unconsciously. I read plenty of books, The Secret, Power of the Subconscious Mind, Success to a Positive Mental Attitude, Napoleon Hill. All these guys were my heroes. They helped me change my mindset. So I realized that I was affirming unconsciously of having life. So one day I woke up and said, today I refuse to be miserable. So I got up, I changed my whole lifestyle. I changed the way that I eat. I changed the way that I talk. I changed the way that I move. I changed the way that I worked out. Every day I acted like I was going home, not knowing when I was coming home. So that's when I got the revelation to start taking these programs, and I started working out, getting my body together, started eating different. I don't eat meat anymore. I'm vegetarian. Everything just changed. My whole mindset, my spirit, my soul, everything changed to the point that I wanted to go home. And spiritually, what happened when I gave my life to God, I never forget it. Kenneth Copeland Ministries, T.D. Jake Ministries, Dave Copeland, Dave Weinstein Ministries, they would send me these prayers in the mail. And I would, on these prayers, I'd say the same thing. I would say, thank you, God, for touching the president and the Congress' heart for changing these unfair laws. And I would send these prayers into these ministries. And they would write me back and say, Solomon, we agree with you on these prayers. So that's how I know spiritual played a big part of me coming home. I give God all the glory and praise for me coming home. I'm very spiritual. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And I would affirm my release through spirituality, through my attitude, positive mental attitude. And people thought I was crazy how I acted, you know. I would post stuff on my board, in my room saying I'm coming home. I would post dates and everything. And just so happened, Congress changed the law and the president signed that bill and I was ready to go.
So was that when the First Step Act was signed into law, you knew pretty quickly that you were getting out? You know, not then, but.
No, sir.
No?
Now that's a process right there. When the president signed the bill, now it goes to the judge's hands now. Now the judge has the power. So it still was no guarantee because of my background, what I've been through. My prison record wasn't clean. I got into some altercations, you know, so, you know, it was up in the air, but I did do a big transitional change in my programming, my education, my mentorship, everything. So all that went in. So now it's in the judge's hand. And once the judge got it, he looked at it. It took like, once the First Step Act changed, it took like almost 2 years for me to get the lawyers and everything in process. And I was one of the last ones to get it. So it came through for me, and it truly was a blessing. Actually, the judge did it December the 16th of 2021. And I laid there, came out, we was on lockdown due to the COVID. We was on, they called it a modified lockdown due to COVID. So you come out, you come out every day for a couple of hours, then you go lock in. You come out for shower, maybe watch a little TV, get a little workout, get on the computer, and you lock in. So on this particular day, we was on lockdown the whole day. So I never got it. I never seen what was happening. The next day they opened the door. So I went straight to my computer and I seen the email from my lawyer. And when I seen it, I couldn't believe it, man. I just stared at it for a long time. Then it said like 360 something months, whatever it was. So I ran in my room and got my calculator and came back, started calculating the months.
Nobody could count in months that high and convert it to years. It's crazy.
So when it said like 28 and a half years, then my lawyer hit back and said, my out day is November the 26th of 2021. And they gave me 9 months halfway house. I did my last 2 months on home confinement. It's truly been a blessing.
So I want to hear a little bit more about your time in prison, and then we can move on to, transitioning back into the outside world.
Yeah.
During your time in prison, I mean, you talked a lot about, the revelation you went through and God changing you. I wanted to ask you, what did you learn most about yourself from your time in prison? Something that either you didn't think you had in you, or something that, maybe the biggest thing you saw change within yourself?
The main thing I learned about myself is that I'm a spiritual being. I really believe that we are spiritual beings that was created by a creator, that we can rely on a higher power. If we truly believe, if we truly get in sync with our spiritual self, great things can happen from that. That's what I found out. So I reached my lowest point in life where I wanted to commit suicide. And that's when I got the awakening from there. Everything from that point on, everything was like learning and growing into this new spiritual self and affirming and believing that I can speak things into existence, no matter the time span. My spiritual eyes opened up. I remember just something small. Once I understood about my spiritual self and the affirmations, I started affirming good health. That was my first, something small. I started with something small. I always wanted to go home, but I started small first to get a belief of it. And I said, you know what? I want to get in perfect health. I want to get myself together health-wise. And when I came in my room, I noticed that I would see all these health books on the unit, and they've been there for a long time. Before I didn't notice these books. So that's how you know your mindset changed. You start seeing things that you never saw before. Once your whole state of being, your spiritual self changed, new things open up on the inside, will transform itself to the outside. It's always in, out, not out, in.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I mean, that applies to people in prison, people outside of prison. I mean, so
Yes.
often we lock ourselves inside our own prison, and we
Yes.
limit we limit what we can see just based on going through this life, really just unconsciously, not thinking. And yeah, just working on changing something small, praying, if you believe in God, praying about changing that small thing, and just focusing on changing that one small thing, and you will see everything open up around you. I 100%
Hey,
agree with
John,
that.
I'm going to say 2 good books. Anybody listening, 2 good books will change anybody's life. That's The Secret and Power of the Subconscious Mind.
Okay. I haven't read either. I'll pick them up.
The Power of the Subconscious Mind is by Joseph Murphy, and The Secret is by, I think her name is Rhonda Byrne. Those are 2 good books that would change lives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care where you're at, in jail or outside. If you're going through a funk in your life and you need a whole transitional change in your mentality, those are 2 great books to start with.
Yeah, I have not read them. I will. I'll definitely check them out. Let me
Check
take
them
that
out on
recommendation.
YouTube. You go YouTube. You can go digital. Yeah, they on there.
So speaking of books, and you've read a lot of books, obviously, but you also write. So
Yes.
When did you start writing?
I actually had the premonition while I was in the jail fighting my federal case in the 90s. I just didn't know. I had a premonition to write. I just didn't know how to do it. So when I went to federal prison, I went to the hole for making some wine, some hooch. So when I went down to the captain's office, the captain told me, he said, "Yeah, Montego, I'll pull the wine out. I just want you to tell me, where the knives at on the unit." I said, "Man, Captain, I don't know where no knives at, nothing, man. Go on, send me to the hole, man. I don't know nothing about that." So he said, "Okay, you're going to the hole." So while I was in the hole, this like a jail within a jail. Everything taken away from you, all your privileges. So it's like 23 in 1. And all you got is your books, a bed, a shower in a cell. So I'm sitting there meditating, and that's when the idea came to me about writing. So I jumped up, I grabbed my pad and pen, I just started bullet pointing certain events that happened that I want to talk about and write about. And when I got out the hole, it was guys already writing. So I would talk to these guys about writing. I was serious about it. I met a couple of guys that was real serious, and they gave me a few pointers, and I wrote some rough drafts and let some guys read it. And they was kind of, amazed. They was say, "Hey, man, you might got something here." So I went on from there. And when I went to USP Canaan, I met a kingpin out of Baltimore named Linwood Rudy Williams, and he had already started writing books and already was talking to publishers. So he helped me mold myself into a writer. He helped edit my book, showed me how to streamline my book, make it a story. And I wrote and got a contract from a publisher, and that's how I started writing.
Wow. I mean, that's also great advice for anyone who wants to start writing. Find someone who's done it and learn from them. I mean, you have to also, do it yourself and put the work in, but to have someone to take you through step by step and show you what you need to do. I mean, that's invaluable to have that mentorship, right?
Yes. I was blessed. I was blessed throughout my whole, even through the hard times, John. I knew that a higher power, once I understood the higher power, the totality and the significance of it, oh man, it really helped me. So I always had like an angel with me at all times.
So How many books have you written? How
I've
many have you
written four.
published?
I've written four, but only one is published right now. Mother
Okay.
three, I'm still. I want to self-publish them once I get everything together and get my company rolling. I want to self-publish my remaining books, but I had got a publisher for my first book.
So what's the name of that first book and what's it about?
The name of it is called Lost: Last Organized Street Soldiers, and it's a fictional story about a family that's fighting against oppression.
Okay.
So I took events that I experienced and made some stuff. You know how the stuff go. Made some stuff up, and we called. We put a 100 on a one. You know, and I turned it up. You know, it was pretty. It was okay.
That's awesome. So you got out of prison or you went to a halfway house. What you said in November,
February,
right? Oh, February. That's right. Then you got out in November. Is that right?
Yes. I did 7 months. They gave me 9 months halfway house. I did 7 months in the halfway house. I did my last 2 months on home confinement, and then I released November 26th of 2021. So I've been released by about 4 months now.
Mm-hmm. So what's that transition been like for you?
Oh man, it's been beautiful. The halfway house was a blessing. You know, I know a lot of guys, they want to immediately come home and get things going and get with their families and so forth. But I realized that I recommend that halfway house to anybody that's coming home, especially anybody that did a long time like me. You know, that halfway house helped me get my license, my driver license, resume writing, more discipline on how you do things, job hunting. I mean, just mentoring skills. They even feed you, man. 3 meals a day. So, I mean, all that, man, you're saving money, you're saving time, you're learning, you're growing. It's a real patient process. And I'm thankful that I went through that process, because I wanted to come straight out. I wanted to get immediate release, come straight out to our family, you know, and get things going. But that halfway house, I'm glad I went through that for 9 months. That truly was a blessing.
Honestly, sometimes you hear the opposite with the halfway house, and
I know
some people that I know who've been through that situation goes differently. But that's good that it helped you. That's a good thing, obviously.
You know what? I'm gonna say this real quick. It's all in the mindset, John. I realized that a lot of guys, especially if you've been in prison, they had this mindset that, you know, a lot of people was against them. Like, you know, people in the halfway house against you, people on the streets against you. The system is against you. But I had to realize that I had a mandatory life sentence. So my tolerance level was real high now. I don't let things bother me no more. So I look for the progression of things in everything that I do. So instead of me looking for all the negative things in the halfway house, I look for all the positive things and I focused on that.
Can you expand on that? That's interesting. So you look for the progression of things. So like, can you give like an example maybe of something you would?
Yes, the majority of prisoners, prison is a miserable environment. First of all, nobody wants to be there. You know, to my understanding, you might got some guys that do this and that, but I'm gonna tell you, man, nobody wants to be. I'm gonna say 99.9% of people in prison don't want to be there. Yeah. So that whole mentality, man, it gives you the mindset of anything that's connected with prison gives you a negative energy. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's unconsciously. So the halfway house is connected to the prison system because you're still technically in prison. So now you might go to child one day and the eggs might be cold, just something small. So now you might blow it up like, why are my eggs cold? And oh man, y'all want to do us wrong. Y'all want to know. Now it becomes a big protest. You want to write it up. You want to, so, instead of with me, I'm saying, oh, the eggs cold today. Can I please have some warmer eggs, please? You see the difference? You see the difference. So that right there, it'd be the mindset that you're looking for any little thing to cause blame. There's no system that's perfect. But with me my whole mentality was I'm gonna have a positive mental attitude, what I learned from the books that I read, PMA. So everything I looked at, I try to deal with a positive attitude with it. So if my eggs was cold, I take it back up to say, hey, can I please have some warmer eggs, please? Sure, Mr. Montagueo. And I realized from that point on that all you got to do is address the situation with respect and humility. And 9 out of 10, you're going to get that same respect and humility in return.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. I mean, and I mean, I find myself falling into that same trap too. It's so easy to just fall into like a negative spiral. The woe is me. Why is this happening to me? Rather than actually, just trying to move the ball forward a little bit, maybe find a small solution, getting warm eggs, something like that, rather than letting things spiral totally out of control. And then you find yourself, in even a worse position. So I love that advice.
You know what? This is my motto. I tell everybody this, and I've been through the worst of the worst, from juvenile to the feds. My motto is this now: anything is better than that jail cell. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Yeah.
I believe that.
Yes, sir.
So you've been out now for a few months, out of the halfway house, off of home confinement.
Yes.
How have things been going? Job search, things like that. How's everything going for you?
Oh, it's been going beautiful. I've hit a few walls. Like I said, I started my company, LLC, HIT LLC, High Intelligent Thought. We dealing with finances, how to build finance, how to build credit, and then I'm a motivational, inspirational, spiritual speaker, teacher, and mentor for my organization, for my company. So that's what I do. I speak. So I'm getting out off the ground myself, but looking for employment and things of that nature has been slow. I thank God for my family support that I've received. And I just got an interview coming up tomorrow to work as a mentor at a shelter through a foundation called the Safer Foundation. About to go to school for logistics, transportation logistics. So things has been on the ball. I realized that we call it lanes in jail, finding your lane. It's like we are driving on the highway. You got the speed lane, you got there's certain type of lanes you drive in. So the same mentality is in jail. You find your lane, you got these lanes people drive in. So I found my lane in prison. I did good in my lane once I found my lane. So it's the same process out here. I found my lane out here and I'm comfortable with it. And I thank God for it, because when I do hit a wall, I always say to myself, hey, it's better than that jail cell. And I always know that my creator finds solutions to the problem.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think about it this way, but I think it's true. I mean, I haven't been to prison, but with you being able to say what you've experienced, the lowest of the lows. So you have that as a reference point. It's not gonna get lower than that, and you can bounce right off of that. Other people, I think, honestly, not having that low, it doesn't give you a grounding point, maybe, if that makes sense. So I think in a way, and I'm not saying that like people should intentionally go to prison to have that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying individuals finding, kind of like deconstructing things. Okay. So, say someone loses their job or something like that, and come home, you're all negative, you're feeling terrible, you don't know what to do. You think a worst case scenario is going to happen. You're going to lose everything. Just sort of deconstruct things. What's the worst thing that happens? So say you do lose your house. So you lose your house. What do? You find a different place to live. You find a small apartment. Maybe you have a family. You get them in there. You just kind of take things down to what's the worst case, and then think about, okay, I could deal with that worst case. And once you're comfortable with that, then something like a setback, like losing your job, or a business being shut down or something, you can bounce back from that a lot easier.
Yeah, you know what I say to people, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm just saying this. Try this. Have somebody that you trust, that you cool with, be there with you for maybe a few hours. How long you can stand it.
Mm-hmm.
Have them lock you in your bathroom. Have them lock you in your bathroom. This is what a jail cell is. It's a big bathroom. Have them lock in your bathroom and have them serve you your meals there in the bathroom with that locked door. You know, after so many hours pass by, I promise you, when that door opens, your mentality is going to be different.
Yeah, I think there's something to that.
So
yeah,
what I'm saying,
I've heard of people doing similar things, like going and sleeping on the floor. You know,
right.
just go sleep on the floor.
So,
if you can sleep on the floor, then I mean you're not going to take your bed for granted. You know, you'll know that if you have to, you can sleep on the floor.
And what I think it is, John, I think it's this how the world is built, man. You see all these people doing good, all the things going on and how it's moving. And when you're not on that level, the losing of a job or a house, something like that it can tear a person down. I understand that. But what I do know is this: long as you are alive and well and able to move around freely, you got a chance. And long as your attitude is positive, now your whole understanding of life is different. When you start loving life, that's the difference. Instead of going with the everyday rote of life, the woe is me or this and that. When you really start loving yourself and loving life for what life really is, because life is a gift and we got to appreciate it, that's when your whole mentality changes. That's when your eyes open up to see things as being blessings instead of things that is owed to me or I got to have this. No, you are being blessed. So everything you have, including your life in the beginning, is a blessing, the gift. And everything after that is a blessing, the gift. So when you have that mindset, that attitude to have, everything changes from there. And that's what I had to learn in prison, man. I appreciate everything. Even when I hit my head on the wall, I appreciate it because I know I'm going to find a solution to get around that wall eventually because life is good.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
Yes,
Solomon, it's been great getting to speak with you. And I think, I love episodes like this because people see the title and they think, oh, how am I going to relate to someone who's been to prison? And I think you've done an excellent job of conveying the lessons that you've learned. And I mean, honestly, I think you're going to have a great future as a motivational speaker. Conveying the lessons you've learned in a way, that someone who maybe sits in an office all day can apply those same lessons and benefit from them. So I think that's fantastic. Before I let you go, I want to give you a chance here to tell people how they can learn more about either your business. I don't know if you have a website yet, or how they can follow you if you're on social media, things like that.
Yes, you can go on Facebook, Twitter. What else I got? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, King Solomon Montagueo. Go on there, look it up, and I'll pop right up.
And that's Montagueo, spelled Montagueo. Montagueo.
Yes. And I got a lot of my videos on there already. A few of my speeches on there. And I would love to talk to anybody that would listen to me. I would love to motivate and inspire and spiritually inspire anybody that wants to hear my story, or I can hear your story and we can put our heads together and motivate each other. That's what I'm about, man.
That's awesome, man. And so before I let you go, can you give some parting words of wisdom? Maybe there's a question I didn't ask you, something really important that you wanted to get across.
Yes. What I want to say is what I've learned, just to break it down simple. And I'm going to tell a story after this. I learned 4 aspects of life: mind, body, soul, and spirit. Your mind is your mental state of being every day, your thoughts. That's who you are. As a man thinketh, so is he or she. So sit back sometimes and just see how your thoughts are, because that's who you are. And you have the power to change your thoughts if your thoughts not where it should be. My thoughts are magnificent. I have my times where I'll be like, oh man, it's not going to be a good day. But I always say to myself, it's how I carry that day is the key. It's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it is the key. That's the key.
Yes.
That's the mindset, your thoughts every day.
How you respond. Yep.
Exactly. And your body is your vehicle, which you use every day. How are you health-wise, nutrition-wise? Are you eating right? Are you exercising? Because your body is just like your car. You need to get around in every day. So the same way you treat your car, the same way you treat your body. Put good fuel in your body, water, give it rest. And your soul is where your intellect and your emotions reside. So ask yourself, how am I intellectually? How am I emotionally? Evaluate yourself on that level. If you see weaknesses on those aspects, work on it. And the last, my favorite one, is spiritually. How are you connected with the creator that you believe who created you? So when you're moving on all four of these aspects at a decent level, that's that balance you need to elevate you to another level. And my story is this. It was an old sage that lived in a walled city. And every day, a part of his ritual would, before he do his daily stuff with holding court amongst everybody who would come ask him questions, he would come out every morning and play with the children. That's how he get his day started. He loved the children. He loved their free spirit. So on this particular day, two individuals were moving from their respective towns. So the first mover came to the sage, and he asked him, he said, "Sage, can I ask you a question?" Sage said, "Sure. What's going on?" He said, "Well, I'm leaving my old town, and I want to know how your walled city is, because I might want to move there." And the old sage looked at him and said, "Well, how was it where you just left?" He said, "Oh, man, it's bad, man. They killing, they robbing, they carjack, everything under the sun they doing." He said, "Well, it's the same thing going on in my walled city." The man said, "Oh, no, I'm good." So he ran off. So the sage went back to his regular business, talked to the children. So the next man came up, asked him the same question. "Old sage, I'm moving. How was your walled city?" And the sage looked at him and said, "Well, how was it when you just left, young man?" He said, "Oh, man, it was great, man. Good jobs, people great, the community great, good houses. I love it." He said, I'm just trying to find a place closer to where I'm going to be working at, my new job." And the sage said, "You're finding the same thing here, young man." And he opened the wall gate and the man went in. The moral of the story is, whatever you're looking for in life, that's what you're going to find.
That's the truth.
Called the law of attraction. The law of attraction.
I love that. Solomon Montagueo, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
Thank you, John.
This was fun.
All right.